Okay, so the end of this week's episode was definitely a tearjerker. It kind of felt a little bit sad, ultimately finding out what happened to Ultear and her fate. For the most part of this episode, though, prior to that was basically just a lot of, like, aftermath, yet again, kind of displaying some of the events of what happened. So ultimately, this episode was kind of like a mixed bag up until the end. Poor Ultear, though. So for starters, we find out regarding Doran Bolt that basically he doesn't necessarily play 100% by the rules. And if you look closely to that, that kind of shows how much of a character even he's changed. And while he's not the most major character, and I don't think anybody's like, Doran Bolt for the win, man, Doran Bolt, ultimately, you could definitely see how much he's changed. Because prior to this arc, he was kind of like a little bit more, no, you got to go by the rules, and I'm following the Magic Council, and blah, 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 blah. But now he's kind of like protecting people, and he's understanding a little bit more. Sometimes you have to do things a little bit off the grid, and you have to do things a little bit twisted so that you can protect people that are innocent. Basically him protecting the royal family from what they were doing with Eclipse and whatnot, erasing the memories of the Magic Council, because if he didn't do that, they probably would have been persecuted or something would have happened to them ultimately. So the fact that he did that definitely shows even Doran Bolt as a character has grown, which is odd because, you know, people always come at Fairy Tail, this character didn't grow, that character didn't grow, but at least we can say Doran Bolt definitely grown, shall I say, based on this episode of him kind of like going off the rules to protect people. And then a lot of this episode was mainly focusing on Ultear, people's reactions of not seeing her for a while. And to be honest, the end of this episode with Gray and kind of his reaction and seeing her, I felt maybe in the manga it was a little bit more tragic because it was kind of more sudden. In this episode, it starts off with that and it kind of builds up to that, so it's kind of like, holy shit, you know, what's going on? Even though in the manga it was done that way, but I just felt a little bit more impactful. But nonetheless, it was still pretty freaking sad seeing what happened to her. And to be honest with you, you think about it, I know a lot of people are like, well, she should have died or whatever, but not dying, but ultimately losing nearly your entire life, isn't that almost worse? Basically, like 1 minute you're 20 years old or something like that, and next minute you're like 80 years old. And I noticed something as well with Ultear. She didn't want Gray to suffer. You could definitely say that she does legitimately care about Gray, and she did legitimately care for him, because when he's like turning around and he's like telling the car, stop immediately, she's like, you know, it's over. My journey is done. I've lived my life. So in a sense, it's almost worse to go fast forward in your life to your very last days, even though everyone around you that you know is pretty much still living their life in their prime. So I feel, if anything, what Ultear went through is far much worse than any normal, like, you know, just a death, so to speak, or, you know, a character dying or a character getting severely injured or something like that, because that is like, you know, you lost your entire life and you got to witness your last few days of you just being old, even though you were just in your 20s. I mean, to be honest with you, if you even look at society is always trying to capture their youth. We get movies all the time of this character just got switched back to its youth. You know, this grown woman is now a kid or something like that. So not only does society put importance on that, overall, it's a sad thing to go from 20 years old to just an old lady, and to see what she's been through. I honestly felt bad for her, and I feel bad for Gray. You see that there's this build up with Gray, something always happening with him, whether it be in Tenrojima, the things that happened where he finally had to let Or go and kind of see, you know, Ultear, what she's been like, and then kind of coming into this arc with what happened to Ultear. It just keeps on constantly building. There's always something going on with Gray's life in the manga, and I definitely feel that Hiro puts importance on that, because that's one of the few things that he really truly honors, regardless of what. He never really fucks up with Gray's life story. So in a sense, good stuff there. But besides that, majority of the episode was just kind of like going really slow paced and building up, and kind of small little references here or there to, like, Tartarus, for example, that other guild that we haven't seen yet in the anime and whatnot. It was just really a lot of build up and just aftermath talk and stuff like that. So as a whole, the episode, it was alright, nothing too spectacular up until really the end, building up what happened to Ultear. The preview, though, the next episode definitely looks pretty good. If you've seen the preview, based on what we've seen in the preview, is like, holy shit, you know, things is going to get real really quick. So I'm looking forward to next week's episode. But as a whole, this episode, I'm in between like a 6.5 to a 7. Mainly the end of the episode was just really tragic, but aside from that, it was just a lot of like, oh, okay, this character did this and these characters went here. So yeah, I'm between 6.5 on 7 on this week's episode. It was like the best thing was that tragic ending with Ultear. And again, I feel while people will say, oh, Ultear should have died or something like that, what she's going through is a lot worse than death. Well, let me know what you guys think. First of all, what do you think about Ultear? How do you feel about what happened to her? Did you get them feels at the end? I honestly did. I think I got them maybe a little bit more in the manga, but overall, it was just really sad shit. That's like fucked up, losing your life in a sense. but still being alive to witness everyone else's for a little bit longer. And your overall thoughts of this week's episode. Again, check out the preview if you want to get excited for next week, because it's looking pretty good. Although, why is Lucy in a wedding dress? Like, I didn't propose to her yet. Okay, let me stop. But that's all I have for this week's review. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, if you could do so as well, that would be awesome. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.